Hey everyone, time for another special episode of Record Collecting with the Quill. Today we will continue our breakdown of the Quill discography. We're going to talk about this one, our third album, Voodoo Caravan, released in 2002. Our first album for SPV Steamhammer, and our only album for JVC Victor in Japan as well. We're going to discuss that a little bit further down the road. But before we start, make sure you subscribe, hit that little notice bell, and share with your friends. Well, last time we ended with the Silver Haze album and us doing our first shows outside of Sweden, going to Germany and Netherlands. And around this time, around the year 2000, we got offered to do a bunch of different tribute albums. What happened was you got offered, do you want to sort of participate in this tribute album? And what you got was usually they paid for the studio, and you got a bunch of free albums. And we thought it was good exposure, so we did a bunch of these around that time. And usually whenever we got when they paid the studio fee, you could record a couple of extra songs as well while you were there. So we did a bunch of stuff. We did Iron Maiden, we did a tribute album to Trouble, we did Captain Beyond, we did Aerosmith as well, and we did a Swedish one as well for Swedish bands. And all of these tracks are in fact available. It was re-released just recently on our latest album, Live, New, Borrowed and Blue. But the Iron Maiden one was really interesting. It was done for an American label called Meteor City, and they really liked our version we recorded, Where Eagles Dare from Peace of Mind, and they really liked it and contacted us and asked us if we had something they could release. And Silver Haze had just been released by Roxanne, so they still had the rights to that one. But the first album, our label who released that, the Swedish one, by that time they were out of business, so we had all the rights to the first album. So we offered them the first album and sent that to them, and they came back and said, yeah, this is something we really want to release. So in 2000 they did a re-release of the first album, and shortly afterwards it was also released by a European label. They struck some sort of deal with them, and in fact it was actually released in Russia as well in a separate deal. And the German deal, there was a girl working for SPV Steamhammer who heard this album and was really liked it, and so got in contact with us and was asking us about our label situation. And also around this time I did a tour and played bass with Arch Enemy and got to know their then manager as well, and he was sort of interested in the Quill as well. So we sent him a demo. We recorded a demo in Halmstad, where the same studio where we later will record Hooray, but that's the next episode. We recorded a demo of 5 songs. I think it was Voodoo Caravan, Spiral, 1,000 Years, and a track called Mind Drifter, and possibly one more. So we sent that demo to him, and he passed it on to SPV Steamer as well. So they sort of heard of us from a couple of different sources. And also around the same time, a Japanese label got in contact with us, also the label who released the Iron Maiden tribute in Japan, and wanted to make a deal with us as well. So we struck actually 2 record deals, one with JVC Victor for Southeast Asia and one with Steamhammer, SPV Steamhammer, for the rest of the world. And all of a sudden we went from a poor band sort of struggling to make ends meet to all of a sudden having a huge budget. I remember when we got the draft for the record contract, it came on fax machine, I almost fainted. It was a lot of money involved. It was still money in the business around this time. So all of a sudden we had this huge deal. We didn't have to think about money, so we once again went down to Malmö and to Bano, rented another house and stayed there for I think 3 or 4 weeks, and started recording our third album. And around this time everything was really up and positive, as you could imagine, having this great deal, and all of a sudden there's talk about tours and yeah, all the things we've been struggling sort of to reach for, all of a sudden we have it in our hands. So it was a great time, and it was great going back to Berno's place. We recorded I think 13, 14, maybe even 15 songs. A little bit different this time. We recorded each instrument separately, and I don't really know why, since we were really pleased with the sound on the second album on Silver Haze. But we did drums first, bass, and then guitar, which I think is a little bit of a shame when you listen to it. As I said, we were really pleased with the Silver Haze sound, and everyone recorded at the same time. But with sort of the stakes were higher, and we wanted it to be a little bit more, I don't know, polished or perfect in a sense. And we also got some guests coming down to record with us. We got Michael Amott from Arch Enemy and Spiritual Beggars and Carcass as well. Came down and recorded a solo for the track Shapes of Afterlife. I remember, great time. He came down. We were really close around this time. We were Spiritual Beggars and the Quill played a lot together, and as I said, I had toured with Arch Enemies as well, and later around this time also joined Spiritual Beggars for a couple of years. So he came down I remember the day before, and we had a great evening, just drinking beers and sort of just talking tall tales. And then he recorded the solo for the track, and as I remember, it went really quick. We got a couple of different guests as well. We had one guy called Jaime Salazar playing percussion. He's sort of a famous drummer here in Sweden as well, and percussionist, and also a guy playing some keyboards as well. So we sort of mixed the first and the second album together in a sense. And when everything was sort of finished, we sent it off to both labels, to SPV and to JVC, so they could review it and what tracks they liked and what tracks they didn't like. And to our surprise, or maybe not surprise, but they sort of they had different ideas on what should go on the album. So when it actually was released, here we have the European version released by SPV, and then you have the Japanese version, or the Southeast Asian version, released by JVC. The track listing is a little bit different, since they favored different songs. So on this one you have a different track list, and you also have 2 songs, I believe 2 or 3, I think it's 2. You have one track called Gather Round the Sun, and also a track called 1,000 Years that isn't on the European release, since they sort of like different stuff. And this one is sort of the one, usually when you talk about people, the one that got us, sort of a lot of people got to know us through this one. And I think it's really good. There's some really great tracks on this one. Cover is done by Per Wiberg, the keyboard player from Spiritual Beggars and Opeth, and he's doing artwork on his spare time. So he did this for us. I think it's really cool. We worked quite a bit on it. You have the Quill, sort of the Quill's son, as mentioned before, here in the background, and sort of a voodoo tribe here. And for favorite tracks, well, I like the title track a lot, Voodoo Caravan, lots of energy. Sell No Soul as well was a great one. We actually did a sort of a single mix of that one, which hasn't been released. Sort of we shortened it a bit. And then also a couple of the more, I like Travel Without Moving, because it's so different. And yeah, some really cool tracks on this one. What I'm not really that fond of, we had problems with this one, was the mixing. We sort of have, us and Berno had a sort of different ideas on how what the mix should sound like. So we worked quite a bit on it, and sort of I don't know, it's sort of 50% his idea and 50% our idea in a way, and I have sort of mixed feelings about the album because of that, because it could have sounded better to my ears, but then again, now it is what it is, and you just have to live with it. But I think we had a different sound in mind, and I think we came closer to that on the next album. But what it has in the way that Bono mixed it, it has a lot of energy to it. It's a lot of power to it, which I think a lot of people are drawn to as well. So hey, what are my opinion worth? Nothing, really. Yeah, what else can you say about it? As I said, it was a great time as well. I also remember Jarl and me went to Gothenburg to oversee the mastering of the album, and it was the same time as it was a big political meeting. I think there was a G6 meeting or something, or G7 or whatever it's called, in Gothenburg. So it was, and the American president, I think it was George Bush at the time, Jr., was in Gothenburg, and it was totally crazy. It was a lot of demonstrations and stuff, so the city was basically closed, and you had helicopters and you had fires, and it was, yeah, totally crazy, and we got stuck in a traffic jam for almost 2 hours trying to get to the studio as well. So we were like 5 minutes away from just leaving the car and walking the last the last way to the studio. But we got it mastered, and it came out really nice. And we have a couple of different versions as well. It was released, as I said, it came on vinyl a couple of years ago. And where you have the European version, but you also have a bonus CD with all the tracks that was recorded. And was one track called Spiral. It wasn't on any of the first two releases, but was released on this reissue. And you also have the CD version, of course. Reissue looks like this, and you have, I think it's 14 tracks. Spiral, Gather Round the Sun, 1,000 Years, all the tracks that was recorded. What else is there to say about this one? Well, yeah, we did a lot of interviews around this time, but we didn't do that many shows because it was already talk about the Monster Magnet tour we did a year later or so. That was already planned, so that's why we did some great shows though. We did the Wacken Open Air, the world's biggest metal festival in Germany. We did Metal Days in Switzerland. We played a little bit around here in Sweden as well, but we didn't do any big tours. But that was because the label already had something in mind for us, so and that's why we released this one, did a lot of press, and then went directly into working on the next album. Some other cool stuff that was released around this area, this time. Well, here you have the tribute album that sort of started it all. But this is also a cool piece. This is a soundtrack called I Am Vengeance. It was supposed to be a horror movie. I don't think it. I sort of tried to search it on the internet. I don't think it was ever released. But what you have here is one of the demo tracks we recorded for the album. Called Mind Drifter, but on the album it's called Drifting. But basically those are the two, it's the same song, but it's two different recordings. Here you have the demo version, but we had to rename it since this was released for the Meteor City label, and then when SPV wanted to release it, we couldn't it was contractual in a way, so we renamed the song Drifting and add a little piece to it as well. So we didn't want to get any legal trouble with an American record company. But this one is rather cool actually, since it's the demo version, and that one hasn't been released anywhere else. So and I think it's quite easy to get, since, as I said, the album or the film was never released. What else is there to say? It was a lot of stuff happening, so it's kind of hard to sort of remember what happened at what time and during what album. But I think those are fair. Sort of as I said, it was a hectic time recording the album, doing all the press and stuff. But as I said, not much touring that came for the next album. So I think we'll sort of end it here now and continue with the next album, since they are recorded more or less back to back. But before we end, make sure you follow us on social media. It's TheQuillSweden. The 30th anniversary show is coming up, just a little bit more than a week away, and we're also doing the Quill exhibition. We met today and went through all the stuff we have. We have so much cool stuff to show you. So it's going to be really nice to put all those things together at the public library in Mönsterås. So if you're anywhere near here, make sure you stop by and have a look at it. It's going to be available for 3 weeks, I believe. And you'll find all the news on our social media, TheQuillSweden. So make sure you follow us so you don't miss out. I will also put a link to the Voodoo Caravan album down below so you can listen to it. And now I want to hear, what are your favorite tracks from the Voodoo Caravan album, and what are your general thoughts about the album, our third one. That's it for now, and I'll see you in a couple of days with the next one. Then we will talk about Hooray, It's a Death Trip. That's it for now. Thanks. See you all again soon. Bye.